Hey everyone, it's Triple Mango Threat or Ashley, and today I want to talk about 30 budget EDH staples that you should consider playing, and you can also purchase them at the TCG link down below. And when you buy the cards using that link, you help support the channel at no additional cost to you. So thank you for that, and let's jump right into the video. So first up, let's talk about Visceras here. This is a creature that costs 1 black, it's a 1/1, it's a vampire wizard. But most importantly, we can sacrifice a creature and then scry one. This used to be a $2 card, and at the time I didn't own one, and so whenever Commander Legends came out, this became a 25-cent card. So I had to pick up, 4 because that's $1, and you get 4 copies compared to 1, which used to be 2. Anyways, great deal for this. Great for aristocrat decks that want to sacrifice things. Yes, it's on a creature, but we're getting that sack outlet that we need, and so at a budget level, this is a great option. Next, we're talking about Walking Atlas. This costs 2 mana. It's a 1/1 construct. We can tap it to put a land from our hand onto the battlefield. What some players don't realize is that this is an exploration, but it can fit into any deck. It does require us to tap our creature instead of that enchantment that just stays there. But having the potential that this can go into any deck, this is a great card. Aven Mind Sensor for 2 and a white. It's a 2/1 bird wizard that has flash and flying. If any opponent would search their library, that player searches the top 4 instead of their library. So this means that their fetch lands, like not just Arid Mesa, but we're talking Terramorphic Expanse, Evolving Wilds, they can only look at the top 4 cards, so this is really going to reduce their chances to get anything good. Grim Haruspex for 2 and a black. It's a 3/2 human wizard with morph for a black, which I don't think I've ever used that before. But it says whenever another non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. And so again, this goes great with aristocrat decks because we're drawing a huge amount of cards just by our creatures dying, which is what we want to happen. Next up, we're talking about Plaguecrafter for 2 and a black. It's a 3/2 human shaman. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacks a creature or a planeswalker, which are like creatures that we already may have in our decks, but the great thing is that if they can't sacrifice a creature or a planeswalker, they're going to have to discard a card, and I like this because it's still going to affect our opponents somehow. Next up is Etali Primal Storm for 4 red. It's a 6/6 elder dinosaur that when it attacks, we're going to exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. So I have a little bit of favor towards this because I like to cast my opponent's spells anyway, so it's already putting it a little bit a level higher. And also we get to cast them for free. That's even boop, boop. And don't forget, it's a 6/6, so even if they block with a 1/1, doesn't matter. We're attacking, so it's going to trigger, so we'll still get that awesome effect. So Kodama of the East Tree. This is a 4 and 2 green for a 6/6 spirit that has reach. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent with equal or lesser converted mana cost from your hand onto the battlefield. And it has partner if you wanted this to be your commander with another commander. What's interesting is that I already thought this was a great card when it got announced, but it took me a while to understand that you don't have to just put another Llanowar Elves onto the battlefield. You can start putting lands onto the battlefield. So let's say we play a forest and we didn't use Kodama's ability to do so. We can put a permanent with equal or lesser converted mana cost onto the battlefield. So let's put another forest on there, and then that would be the end of that. But this means whenever we do cast Elvish Mystic, okay, well then what's a converted mana cost with 1 or less? Let's put a forest onto the battlefield again. So I love it for that, but we're cheating mana cost. We're cheating how many lands we can put onto the battlefield. This is a great card. Sun Titan. Now this is probably overused for some people, but again, it's still a great card because for 4 and 2 white, we get a 6/6 Giants with Vigilance. And when it enters the battlefield or attacks, we can turn target permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less from our graveyard to our battlefield. So this means fetch lands are going to be involved in that because lands actually have a converted mana cost of 0. So whenever we crack an Arid Mesa, we can have that into our graveyard. We can cast Sun Titan, we get that back from our graveyard to the battlefield, or whenever it attacks, same thing. Or they destroy one of our enchantments or one of our creatures that we were needing, we can bring that back as well. I love this, and it's still underrated for me. And you can receive a free altar sleeve of Sun Titan, this specific version, if you become a patron towards this channel for the $10 or more tier. And each month you're going to receive a free altar sleeve, free shipping, and you also get 5% off your order if you decide you actually want more altar sleeves than just this one. So moving on, we have Enriched Forerunners for 5 green. It's a 7/7 board with Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. When it enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. That's a lot of words, and what's important is that it is a small buff for all of our other creatures, but this is a great budget replacement for ending the game or dealing our opponents a huge amount of damage. This is going to be the card to get it done. So moving on to artifacts, which is a very short list, we have Mirror Shield for 2 mana. It's an artifact equipment that says the creature gets +2/+0. It has hexproof, and whenever a creature with Death Touch would block this or becomes blocked by this creature, we're going to destroy that creature. It also has equip for 2 mana. This is a great budget way to give our creatures hexproof. So we don't have to pay $10 for Lightning Greaves or $3 for Swiftfoot Boots. We can actually pay less than $1 for this kind of equipment, and yes, it costs more in total for casting and equipping the creature, but when it comes to budget, that's alright, that's not going to hurt us. The last artifact we're talking about is Dragon Throne of Tarkir for 4 mana. We equip this to a creature and then it now has Defender. We can pay 2 and tap the creature. Other creatures you control gain Trample and +X/+X, where X is this creature's power and it has equip 3. I really like this because it's not limiting us to whatever color, and it's giving us that green effect of, they get +X/+X, they get trample. This is really good, especially when our commander is going to have a lot of power. This is a great card to have in your deck, but more specifically, you want a lot of creatures to take advantage of this as well. And it now makes our commander have Defender, so if you didn't plan on attacking with your commander anyways, I would really consider adding this one to your deck. Moving on to enchantments, we have Dreadhorde Invasion for 1 and a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and amass 1, which means we're going to put a +1/+1 counter on an army creature token, and if you don't control one, you're just going to make a 0/0 black zombie creature token. And then it also says whenever a zombie you control with power 6 or greater attacks, that gains lifelink until end of turn. I don't think I care about the last part, or I don't think I've used it, and if I have, it's been a very small amount. This is a budget Bitter Blossom, which says at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life, you create a 1/1 black fairy rogue creature token with flying. Costs the same, except one gives you a flyer and one gives you a walking zombie. But Bitter Blossom is $43, and Dreadhorde Invasion is 30 cents, so I'm going to go with budget on this one. Next, we're talking about Kenrith's Transformation. I want to give credit to the nitpicky nerds for actually bringing this one up. This has been on my radar for a while, and it's been on most of my deck techs that have green in them. But they made a video that talked about this, and they're like, yep, this is a budget bomb, this is a great card, great for removing creatures, great for taking care of commanders or any big threat, and I totally agree with them on that. For 2 mana, we enchant a creature, and it's most likely going to be our opponent's. When this enters the battlefield, we draw a card. That enchanted creature loses all abilities, and it becomes a green elk with power and toughness 3/3. It's really good, and the next card is pretty similar. We have Reprobation for 1 and a white. It's an enchantment aura. We enchant a creature, it becomes a 0/1, loses all its abilities, it's a coward, and all that's different is the power and toughness, and that it's in white now. Verity Circle is a great budget option to Rhystic Study, so they both cost the same amount of mana, but Verity Circle cares about when our opponent's creatures become tapped, and if they aren't declared an attacker, we may draw a card. We can also pay 4 and a blue to tap a creature without flying, which I don't think I've ever used that ability, but that could help in some kind of Voltron deck. We're tapping our opponent's creature, so they're not going to swing at us, hopefully. But this makes their mana dorks, like Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, whenever they are tapped and they're not attacking us, we can just now draw a card. So I love that. Tragic Slip. I wanted to talk about this because for 1 black, it's an instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, but it also has Morbid, so if a creature died this turn, we can actually give something -13/-13. And that can take care of a lot of creatures, and I think it's a budget staple. Moving on, we have a Braid for 1 and a red. It's an instant. Choose 1. Deal 3 to target creature or destroy an artifact. When I first saw this, I was like, this is the dumbest card I've ever seen. I'm never playing this. And then I bought the Commander Legends Precon, the red and white one, and it had this in there. And I was just playing straight out of the box. And I used this, and it's actually not as bad as I had imagined. And I do think this is a budget EDH staple. That can even take care of some people's commanders, so why not? Negate for 1 and a blue. This is going to counter any non-creature spell. You're probably confused why this is on here, but Negate takes care of a lot of spells. It takes care of counter spells, and just for 2 mana, we can deal with a lot of threats. Reality Shift for 1 and a blue. This is going to exile a creature, and its controller manifests the top card of their library. So this will take care of a threat, and it gets exiled, so that is awesome. Next, we're talking about Resculpt for 1 and a blue. We're still exiling a creature, but now we get the ability to target an artifact, which blue doesn't get to do a lot of. Its controller gets a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. Now, it might stink that they're getting a 4/4, but if we're taking care of something that's going to kill us and just give them a 4/4, I'd rather do that. Return to Nature for 1 and a green. This is probably my favorite removal spell in green besides the Kenrith's Transformation. We get to choose 1, and that's destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, or exile a card from a graveyard. In green, when you see something like this, for this mana cost, you usually have 1 in a green for only 2 modes. This lets you get 3, and I really think this is off a lot of people's radar, or they just don't think it's good. I think it's really good, giving us 3 modes for only that 2 mana. Next, we're talking about authorized for 3 and a blue. We can return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand, and it's at instant speed. This can be devastating to token decks because the tokens just get disappeared, and whatever else they're attacking with just gets put back into their hand, which they're going to have to recast, and they may have to discard if they have too many cards in their hand that they can't cast. So this is a really cool one. Next, we're talking about Return of the Wild Speaker for 4 and a green. It's an instant. We get to choose 1. We can draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures we control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. Another powerful card, and what's really cool about this, if you love to draw cards and you have huge creatures in your deck, this is the one for you. And since you may already have huge creatures in your deck, giving them +3/+3 until end of turn, that's a great thing to have. Next, we're talking about Feed the Swarm for 1 and a black. This is a sorcery speed. Destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that permanent's mana value. In Magic, the color black is not good at taking care of enchantments. It's really great at taking care of creatures, but enchantments it just won't touch. So this card is really neat. A lot of people will not play it because it's sorcery speed, but when black doesn't take care of enchantments, I think this is a great option for you to try. Next, we're talking about Sylvanscrying for 1 and a green. We can search for any card in our library. We're going to reveal it and put it into our hand, and then shuffle your library. This not only mana fixes you if you just need a basic forest, but that means you can grab a Cabal Coffers, a Yavimaya, literally any land. This is super good. Chain Reaction for 2 and a red. It's a sorcery. We deal X damage to each creature, where X is the amount of creatures on the battlefield. Hello, awesome board wipe. Whenever our opponent is playing white, they probably have 10 tokens out. Okay, let's deal 10 to everything for 4 mana. Sounds great. Distant Melody for 3 and a blue. We choose a creature type. We draw a card for each permanent we control of that type. So if we're playing a tribal zombie deck or we're playing humans, whatever it is, this is a great card for that deck. Cleansing Nova for 3 and 2 white. It's a sorcery. We get to destroy all creatures or all artifacts and enchantments. This is probably nobody's favorite. They would not put this in their deck. But for 1 more mana, this is a little better with the versatility that it brings than Wrath of God. And I know I'm going to get a lot of disagreement on that, and that's okay. So Wrath of God costs 1 less, and you can destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. So with this one, we destroy all creatures, or we can destroy all artifacts and enchantments. In my meta, I don't come across a lot of creatures that have the ability to regenerate, so Wrath of God is still a great card, but with this one, for 1 more mana, I get that versatility, which I really like. Next, we're talking about Shamanic Revelation for 3 and 2 green. It's a sorcery that says you draw a card for each creature you control, and it also has Ferocious, which says you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. This is a really good card, and if you have a lot of creatures, like maybe you play an elf deck, or you just have a lot of huge creatures in your deck as well, this is a great card for you to have, and drawing cards is probably the best thing in Magic. And the final card we're talking about is Time Wipe for 2 white and a blue. It's a sorcery that says return a creature you control to its owner's hand, then destroy all creatures. Again, this is 1 more mana than Wrath of God, and also adds that blue pip to it, so it's a little more difficult to cast, and you have to have at least those 2 colors when it comes to Commander. But we can save our Commander, or whatever creature that's really important to us, and then we destroy everything else. Sounds great. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, you should check out this other video that talks about the 10 underrated Commander cards, and I do mention some cards from this list on there, but there's some cards that I didn't, so be sure to check those out. And if you want any of the cards I did mention, please use the link down below to purchase them. You help out the channel, and it's at no additional cost to you. Thank you to the patrons who help support this show, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.